My name is Graham Elwood. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. Breaking pedophile, sex trafficking, psychopath arrested today, July 2nd, by the FBI. With us to talk about this subject, Whitney Webb, who has covered this extensively, both at Mint Press News and now Last American Vagabond. Whitney, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today. I know it's been kind of a crazy day today for you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks, Graham.
So, I mean, literally, I'm in a different time zone. I'm in the Pacific time zone. I woke up today around 6:37 a.m. my time. I turned on my phone and I got a text from Lee Camp because he was just on my show yesterday, and we were talking about how ridiculous it is that she's walking free. And then I looked on my Twitter timeline, and it had completely blown up with all the people that follow me, and many who follow you as well. So you've obviously been following this very closely. You've been on my show numerous times to talk about this. What do you make of this arrest? I'm so perplexed. I mean, I'm glad she's arrested. I really am. But
oh yeah,
this is great. But this feels like they're going to try to seal this off and just say, oh, Epstein's dead and we got Ghislaine. It's over. Sex trafficking's done. We did it. What do you make of this?
Right. So it's important to point out that also today, there was a district judge, not in the Southern District of New York, but another part of the country, that ruled that Virginia Giuffre's lawyers have to destroy evidence regarding Ghislaine Maxwell, and claiming that they obtained documents about her activities related to the Epstein scandal illegally, and now they have to destroy that. Right. So that to me sort of suggests all right, you're going to arrest Ghislaine Maxwell on the same day that decision is made. That really, to me, is sort of like an indication this is going in sort of the direction of a limited hangout. They're only going to let some information come out because, the way the Epstein story has been able to stay alive, longer than they wanted it to, a lot of it is because Ghislaine Maxwell was just nowhere to be found.
Right.
Nothing had happened to her. So I think what they're trying to do is slap her with a couple of charges that are honestly really minor. Maybe have a protracted legal battle that gets buried in the news cycle with coronavirus and everything else, and then just have it memory hold and have it go away.
Right.
And have people forget about it for good this time. That's how it looks to me.
Yeah, with some sort of slap on the wrist. They keep hoping for some sort of Acosta style 2009, it'll be a bump in the news cycle and we'll go back to something else. But I don't think they counted on Epstein didn't kill himself being a hashtag
right.
for a year. I mean, I was even watching one of the Black Lives Matter protests where there was a local news person on the scene, and there's a young black guy holding a sign saying Black Lives Matter. Then he gets behind the reporter who's on camera, flips his sign around, and it says Epstein didn't kill himself. So,
wow.
Which was I don't think he was just trying to be clever. I think it's kind of part of having been to several of the protests myself. Obviously, it's about police brutality and everything, but everyone was kind of, there's the overall, this vibe of we're done with this whole broken system. And when Epstein hung himself with a paper t-shirt, everybody went, come on. Nobody
right.
believed it. And everyone kind of feels like it's all broken. A system where Epstein just can either die or get extracted or whatever happened to him is the same system that allows a cop to put his knee on a neck for a guy in the middle of and execute him in the middle of the street. So everybody feels like the ruling, those in power, I mean, on a street level, it's the cops, especially in the black community, but the billionaires have been putting their knees on our necks in various ways. And that's kind of what I feel like, why they keep hoping this goes away, and it won't.
Right. Right. And I think this is an attempt to try and push it in that direction, to try and make it go away. And of course, it also just shows the hypocritical nature, too, of the justice system. And that is really clear for anyone that actually read the indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell that was released today. What it says is that she was charged. She has one count of perjury and then a couple counts. But those counts are all related to enticing minors to travel across states for the purpose of engaging in illegal sex acts with Jeffrey Epstein. But in the indictment itself, it says that Ghislaine Maxwell participated herself in the abuse of those minors, right? And she's not charged for that. and she should be. She's charged for enticing those girls to travel to those encounters for Epstein, even though it says that she was involved in like the sexual assault and rape of those minors, and she's not charged for that. That does not happen to normal people in the US when they get caught in that kind of situation. And they just like, were so, I guess, like, you know, why would they even mention they know that in the indictment, but not press charges? I mean, it's just like, I just found that to be the most striking part, really, of the whole thing.
Of course, like if a regular person got busted, they would look for charges to tack on. They'd be like, "Oh, across state lines, and you're a pedophile too." I mean, they would pile these charges on to say this person's a severe threat to society. We need to get him off the streets, but you know, someone whose dad was in Mossad doesn't get that, and that's the thing. And this is why. Again, I'm glad they got her, but I'm like, there's a weird timing to all this. The Judge Preska ruling, I covered it yesterday about the, destroying documents, which was like, that's odd. That judge has a history of conflicts of interest that she sides with. In the Stratford case, her husband or something, I don't know the particulars on that, but like, and we know that, and Virginia Roberts Giuffre has said this, Maria Farmer has said this, there's no way for this global billionaire sex trafficking ring to exist unless everyone's involved. Judges, cops, big time politicians.
The state.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a state sponsored, right?
Right.
And the fact, I mean, they're not even going after Leslie Wexner. They're just trying to keep it to Ghislaine Maxwell. And they're charging just a handful of victims. There's only 3 victims named in the indictment. And all of this took place between, per the indictment, what they talk about, 1994 to 1997. I mean, that doesn't even cover the period where Virginia Roberts was abused, right? Or a lot of the other victims that have come forward.
Well,
so like, why are they putting on charges for someone for something that happened in the mid 1990s?
I knew this reeked of the royal family, because it's just like, if it's 94 to 97, then kind of that, again, it doesn't have the Virginia Roberts charge. So now Prince Andrew's kind of not in this federal indictment.
Well, it's also before, that also means it's before the relationship between Prince Andrew, Ghislaine, and Jeffrey Epstein was very public and have gotten a lot of media attention. So he can argue that he didn't know anything about the girls and whatnot, right? Because starting in like 2000 is when he started to take frequent vacations with them and would travel with his own massage table and all of this stuff. And be, serviced by numerous of these several of these girls, right, starting in 2000. But if they cap it off at 1997,
okay, there you go. And gee, what are the date time ranges of Bill Clinton's 26 trips? I bet you they're after 1997.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So this has the Clintons and the royal family. I knew it.
Also Dershowitz, right?
Right. Yep. So all these high-profile people in the big 2000s, and one of them is Bill Clinton. Hillary's 2 trips are probably after 1997. It's definitely after he was in the White House that Hillary and Bill were going to Epstein's compound in New Mexico. So I knew when Ghislaine Maxwell was on the run, so to speak, I'm like, if they catch her, the only reason they're going to catch her is to distract us from the fact that Clinton and Trump and Dershowitz and Prince Andrew are clearly involved in this pedophile sex trafficking ring. And they're going to they keep trying to seal this off. They keep trying to do because here's the thing I'm finding out too. So, and when you came on the show and gave me access to the Maria Farmer interview, which was fantastic that you were able to do that. And thank you once again. She talked about the head of the FBI in 1996 was Judge Free. And that's the same Judge Free that did the Free report that was contracted by Penn State University after Jerry Sandusky. And that report, I wasn't paying attention to this kind of stuff back then, was very damning of Joe Paterno, who had already passed away, and the administration. That report said that Sandusky, they knew about him for 13 years and kind of did nothing. But what that report again, we're starting to see this, and correct me if I'm wrong, and because you know more about this than I do, but this is how they seal it off. They just made it, Jerry Sandusky, one bad apple coach, and That's how they seal it off. I mean, my friend who's a child crimes investigator, when that happened in 2011, he was still active on the police force. He said Sandusky was probably getting kids for alumni. And that's how these rings work. And that's why it's so peculiar that the same FBI agent that Maria Farmer said treated her worse than Les Wexner was also picked by Penn State University to do an outside investigation. And that they keep trying to seal us off.
I don't think she reported her claim directly to Free, right? Because he was director of the FBI, but he was running the agency, right, at the time that she said that, right? And she said that when she called, it was very clear to her that they already knew what Wexner and Epstein and Maxwell were doing. Remember, that's in 1996. These charges that that Ghislaine faces now, are from this period, 1994 to 1997, but they had all this information in 1996. They're waiting until 2020, right, to bring this out in the public. Also, during the press conference, the acting district attorney said that this indictment was a prequel to the one from last year, but it follows Epstein's indictment from last year by a year. So how is it a prequel? They've had this there for some time and just waiting. And it's kind of odd, right? That whole District of New York had this huge scuffle, I guess you could say, right, between Attorney General Bill Barr and Jeffrey Berman, who was the district attorney for that area and was basically kicked out by Bill Barr. Not that Jeffrey Berman's a good guy, right? I think they're all dirty, but there was definitely some weird thing. It's interesting timing. I mean, that was like 10 or 11 days ago when that happened, when Berman was forced to leave.
I wanted to talk to you about that because I saw that on your Twitter feed. That's a great question to ask. So Berman gets kicked out 11 days ago, and now these charges happen. So that's another question I have too. Do you think there's some sort of ruling class fight, dueling evil billionaires who are tied into this, trying to stick it to each other or something like that? Do you have any evidence to suggest that?
I mean, I don't really know if that's the case. I think, like I was saying, I think Berman is kind of, not a good guy either, right? Obviously, Bill Barr is awful, right? But Berman also used to work for Rudy Giuliani and has a lot of corruption in his past, right? So I think the disagreement, if it was related to Epstein, was probably about how to handle this indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell or whether to have it move forward at all, right?
Right.
I think it was somewhere in there because the person that Bill Barr wants to put in as the district attorney doesn't have any experience in the legal field. It's totally unrelated, right? So clearly a position to have sort of like a yes man in that particular district, which is ultimately, even though the Epstein indictment and I would argue the FBI investigation, it's been very limited and not really honest, right? It still happened and that was able to, come back into public view, which has been, really important and it allowed a lot of this information, real information of the case, more people to be informed about the reality of the situation, right? So in that sense, it's been really positive. And maybe they were just hoping that not arresting Ghislaine Maxwell, would keep that from happening. I mean, now there's going to be renewed interest in the case, right? Maybe they hope to avoid that, but they're definitely not going to let all of the information come out either, because of course it shows that both parties are super dirty. Both parties are super involved. Billionaires, that bankroll a lot of this stuff, and also intelligence agencies in the U.S. and in our greatest ally, right, Israel, are involved in this too.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. So the person that replaced Berman, what do you make of that person?
Audrey Strauss is her name, but I haven't really looked into her very much. She was Berman's deputy. Bill Barr didn't want her to be holding that post, and Berman insisted that they follow protocol. And so she's the acting district attorney until the Senate, I believe, nominates a full replacement for Berman.
And she was the one who gave the press conference this morning.
Yes.
So do you
I don't know if you noticed, but she didn't take very many questions. There were a lot of questions. Almost all of them she responded saying, we're not talking about that. We're not going to be talking about that. I can't tell you about that. Things like that. So I'm not exactly a person trying to be transparent either. You know what I mean?
It's again, it seems more more damage control tactic than anything else. So I you know, for me, I guess, this is what I thought. This is what I said a year ago when they first got Epstein. I said, he's either going to get a slap on the wrist. If he doesn't, if they deny his bail, they're going to kill him in prison because he's a liability. And that obviously happened. I kind of feel the same thing with Ghislaine. Like, if they're either going to give her some little slap on the wrist and better not do that again, or some like 6 months in some, you know, rich kid work camp or something like that, or she's going to hang herself with a paper t-shirt on the day that the camera broke.
Right. Well, based on the charges she's facing right now, it's very unlikely they would deny her bail like they did to Epstein, meaning that she won't be in prison, right, until the trial and sentencing and all of that stuff would go forward. I would kind of expect that type of trial to be very protracted and very long and take a very long time and probably get very buried in the news cycle as time goes on. And I think that is, you know, both of these corrupt parties, that's ultimately what they want, right, for this to drag out and not attract very much attention. Of course, if she were to do this whole thing in prison, the day she's gone, all of the cameras aren't working, and then this, you know, paper towel, you know, like all this stuff happens. I mean, that would just explode. But I think also we're at the point where like the ruling class knows they can just, you know, do whatever with impunity, and it won't like change anything really based on how things are right now, you know, or at least, you know, that's how they feel. So like, you know, it's very possible they could do that. But the way unless there's more charges announced, I find it very unlikely that she'll like be in prison in a way that Epstein was, right? I think it's very likely she's going to get a slap on the wrist because she wasn't charged with statutory rape even, or like any of that stuff, even though they admit that she was involved in these sex acts with minors and brought them to Epstein and told them to touch Epstein and all this stuff. I mean, all that's in the indictment and talks about her touching these children too. And she's not charged with that. She's charged with convincing them to travel across interstate lines for illegal acts, right? So the reason they chose those charges specifically says to me that this is, you know, going to move towards a slap on the wrist thing, or they might even just settle and she may not go to even like rich people, Martha Stewart prison.
Yeah, she might go to Martha because it's funny. Again, what I saw watching the reading of the indictment by the woman that replaced Berman, was she read all of, not only was Epstein, you know, enticing these girls, she participated. She made that very clear in the thing, but the fact
she said it.
Yeah, she said
and it's in the indictment. But they're just like, yeah, we're not going to charge her for being a sex trafficking rapist and pedophile. We're going to charge her because she convinced 3 minors to travel.
That tells me that this is more show trial, and they're either going to just, it's going to be some long, it's going to appeals court and back to this, and this judge is doing that, and it's going to be, they're going to just drag this out, at least get it past. It's going to drag out after November because Biden is obviously implicated, as is Trump. I mean, and as are the Clintons who are advocating for Biden. And that's my guess, is they're going to drag this out until after the election. And then she'll get some Martha Stewart, you know, prison camp.
I mean, if she gets it at all, right? But I think it's worth pointing out too, let's remember every victim that's given like public, you know, the public details about their experiences made it pretty clear that Ghislaine was much more savage and like abusive than Epstein was, right? So the fact that Epstein got hit with all those charges and dies in prison, and this is what's happening to Ghislaine after she was just allowed to be like Carmen Sandiego for like a year, and they're like, we don't know where she is, but she's been in New Hampshire the whole time, apparently, at this her boyfriend's house, because this was reported on last July that her I forget his name, but he's like the head of this company called Cargo Metrics or something, that she was staying at his mansion last July, and that's where she was found this morning and arrested, right?
Yeah.
The FBI knew this, I guess, and we're just like,
took a year.
Too far.
Yeah, I guess it's 2 years. The drive from Manhattan to New Hampshire is too much of a hassle, or it takes a year to get up there. Maybe they walked it or went on pack mule or something. But yeah, there's just too many massive question marks with regard. The thing I keep going back to is they made this big point last summer of showing this footage of FBI walking out of his New York mansion, his penthouse with just boxes and boxes of evidence and hard drives and all this stuff. Where is that? How come we haven't heard about any of that stuff? We hear about this black book and then a judge says no.
Right.
Like, it's just they keep trying to cover it up. And I think I think the ruling class obviously feels like they can keep getting away with stuff, but the fact this won't go away, they keep, like, Prince Andrew did that ridiculous BBC interview that only made it worse. And he hasn't been allowed in front of a camera since September, whenever that came out, October. So it feels like the public is just kind of, and this is great. And this is why folks such as yourself and me and others, like, why can't let go of this. We got to keep banging the drum on this because they keep wanting this to go away. And I know you're running out of time here, but I don't know. What do you think is next? What is your approach going to be? Is it going to change at all, or what do you see after this?
My approach has consistently been that we need to focus on the fact that this was state sponsored, meaning that it's still continuing. Epstein was a project manager. Ghislaine was really like his handler, I guess you could say, in a sense. But the guy that bankrolled this, and at least was basically the head of the op in the U.S., was Leslie Wexner. And everyone in the FBI knows where he lives because I know where he lives. And his address is basically public. And nothing's happened to him. He hasn't even been questioned this whole time, right? Except beyond, the official statement through spokesman that I was deceived by Epstein, providing no evidence for that, of course, right?
Yeah.
So, the fact that there's going to be nothing going on with Wexner, there's going to be nothing going on about investigating the intelligence ties, which are obviously the biggest part of this, because it's worth pointing out that, this was a large child trafficking operation, but the largest child sex traffickers in the world are intelligence agencies and militaries.
Yep.
Right. So, and remember too, that Epstein at one point was getting a lot of girls from Eastern Europe while he was sharing his plane, had the same tail number that was licensed for the State Department while there were, during the Balkans War and stuff like that. Right. So, this is much bigger than these people. So my approach is to point this stuff out to people, and that, we are basically governed by a bunch of freaking Epsteins and Maxwells. Right.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And the way they keep trying to play, like, even she was Epstein's recruiter is still a half truth. It's still starting to kind of distract the narrative from, no, she's a pedophile herself. And she's a monster, as we've heard from Maria Farmer and Roberts, is that she was just evil. And then we're never, even, I haven't watched yet, but from what I've heard about it, even this Netflix doc, the victims, and I'm glad they were given a voice, say these things, and then the filmmakers don't follow up on them. Like, Les Wexner still gets to play this I didn't know card, and
I'm just an old man and I was deceived. Yeah, and it's complete BS.
The Clintons are trying to play that, and I talk to just neoliberal friends of mine. I just get their take on it, and whatever they say, I go, well, that's the propaganda narrative, because I know they're watching the mainstream media and they're like, yeah, they didn't know. Like, when Hillary's like, we didn't know about Weinstein, or okay, right, the guy that financed your campaign. Like, they've known about all of this. So I think it's...
Hey, well, why haven't people been bringing up that Weinstein and Donnie Deutsch from MSNBC were in a business consortium together?
Weird. That's weird.
No.
That's odd.
There's all these people that just get sort of dropped off, but they're still on TV.
Yeah, they're still on TV, and there's all the CIA Democrats that have ran in 2018 and are run, in all these primaries. They have ties to the intelligence community that are running in this Democratic Party as sort of the quote resistance to Trump, and it's man. It's not.
Joe Biden's national security advisor was deputy director of the CIA under Obama.
Yeah, what does that tell you? And that's the thing I'm hoping people, and I try to do on my show, and I'm glad you're doing it on your end, is to show the connection that a country that allows police officers to execute unarmed black men is the same country that bombs indiscriminately poor people of color in the Middle East and sanctions countries into starvation and kills 85,000 kids in Yemen, is the same country that has an intelligence apparatus that funds a global pedophile sex trafficking ring. So that's why we got to go after like all of it, because
I mean, I just hope this is like enough for people. Like, are you guys gonna take this anymore? Like, is this like who you want to be ruled by? Yeah. You know, I just how much more shit do they have to do?
I know. I mean, I'm getting little glimpses of hope because even the defund the police program, the movement is getting some traction in certain cities like Minneapolis and Seattle and their city councils. And then I saw a bunch of protesters put a guillotine outside of Jeff Bezos, one of his homes in Washington, D.C. And Ghislaine Maxwell went to several of his writers' retreats. So they're all filthy, horrifyingly soulless people that are in charge of everything, and they're committing these atrocious crimes, and we got to just call them all out and take it all down, because it's all connected. Like, because you've talked about this, that it's not just trafficking of children, it's weapons dealing, it's all this stuff. I mean, it's like they've got their hand in every horrible thing that's destroying the planet and humanity that they can.
Right. Absolutely. and speaking of Jeff Bezos, right, Epstein, after he ended his sex trafficking op, became very involved in Silicon Valley, as have a lot of the intelligence agencies that sponsored his op also moved much more of their attention into Silicon Valley and the tech industry. Why we're seeing a lot of these surveillance systems being rolled out, including one that was bankrolled by Epstein himself. Carbine 911 or 911 being basically set to be implemented as the 911 system of the entire country, and also being offered to manage data for the IRS and DMVs throughout the country.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, right? So to me, it looks like they got what they wanted out of this Epstein blackmail operation. They're trying to memory hole it, and now they're on to the next thing, which is about control, essentially, and access to people's data, surveillance, things like that, right?
Yeah. And two, you're seeing it's all tied in, because they love Silicon Valley because that's the way they can track all of us, through Facebook, through Google, through whatever. And then we've got obviously Bill Gates, who, again, you've come on this show to talk about. He has way deeper ties to Epstein than he leads on. He always acts like, we just had one, whoops, we bumped into each other at a party or whatever. And it's like, no. And that's why this is all coming undone. I hope everybody's waking up to this.
Right, hopefully so. But what's important is, right now anyway, with the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, is to put, a lot of people are celebrating the arrest, and that makes sense, because, well, good thing she's not in the mansion anymore, right? But at the same time, I mean, there needs to be a considerable amount of public pressure that these charges are a joke. Right. Essentially. Right. And the more pressure placed on them, hopefully that will prompt them. Oh, well, this isn't going as planned. This isn't helping to memory hole it, because that's what they're trying to do. Right. So what needs to be done is public pressure needs to be placed so that they realize that it's having the opposite effect, and they can't memory hole anything. They have to charge this woman with the crime she actually freaking committed, which was raping thousands of girls, trafficking tens of thousands of girls, probably, and using it to compromise politicians for, foreign and domestic intelligence agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Whitney, I know you got to run, but any final thoughts, and also where people can read and follow your work?
Well, I have some, most of my articles go up at thelastamericanvagabond.com. I have one up today that's tied into Israeli military intelligence, and also the Mega Group, which is this group that Leslie Wexner and the Bronfmans founded, that was intimately involved in the Epstein scandal. Actually, the third part of my Epstein series at Mint Press is basically all about the Mega Group. And this company is going to be using artificial intelligence to monitor populations currently in the state of Rhode Island. They're set to announce partnerships with more states, and they are going to determine which areas of the country to lock down. I would like to point out that the contact tracing software, for example, was later used to track protesters. I have a feeling, based on the history of Israeli intelligence, this is also this algorithm developed by the IDF, right? And also the history of the U.S. national security state, to think they wouldn't use this new technology tied to the freaking Mega Group and Leslie Wexner and stuff like that. for that same purpose is very alarming. So I have an article about that up right now at The Last American Vagabond. I encourage people to read it. You can follow my work on Twitter, _ Whitney Webb. I also have a Patreon. I'm writing a book on Epstein that'll be out in a couple months. And that's about it. I mean, final thoughts. I kind of already said them, I guess, about, there needs to be public pressure placed that there's more charges, or at least at least informing people that these charges are a joke based on the real crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell committed. I mean, but obviously we should celebrate the fact she's not, in living a life of comfort or whatever. But I mean, there needs to be a major effort to resist any attempts to have her just be, slapped on the wrist or sent to Martha Stewart prison or whatever. Yeah. I mean, lock this woman up for good.
In the same way, it's like the cops in Minneapolis. So they've been charged, but we've seen cops who've killed unarmed black people charged in the past and they get acquitted. So getting arrested is great. I'm glad she's out of her boyfriend's mansion or whatever. She's not eating In-N-Out burger, reading a CIA book in Sherman Oaks or whatever the hell. But we can't just go, we did it. And I don't want to get exactly some, rich person prison camp. I want her to see behind bars for the rest of her life. And that's what we need to stay the pressure on. So thank you, Whitney. Please follow Whitney's work. She's doing fantastic work. Obviously, I've put her Twitter on the screen. So check that out and go to Last American Vagabond. Whitney, thank you so much for taking time out today for joining us. And we'll have you back on the show for sure.
Thanks. Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Whitney Webb, everybody. So glad that she was on the show. Man, I can't wait to read her book. She's just doing fantastic work. It's an honor to have her on the show, man. She's just awesome. She's just awesome. 661 people watching, 265 likes. Really got to hit the like button. Everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.